Good morning and welcome to Wheel's session on ending end of month chaos, how to close your books 5 times faster. Can see quite few people were filing in at the moment. While we start to just get more people in, I'd love to know from everyone who's joining so far, what prompted you to join today's session? This is going to be a completely safe space, and we just love if you can pop into the chat and just tell us, what are your biggest end of month time wasters? Don't be shy, guys. Like I said, this is a safe space. Just really want to know what caused you to join today? Where can we add the most value? Yeah,
Yep.
receipts.
Remains
Absolutely a big
correct.
one we hear a lot, huh? Paperwork for management. Wonder what kind of paperwork that would be. Is it things to do with approvals? Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a theme here. There's just a little bit of a lack of compliance outside of the finance team. And I really guess it's an interesting expectation because finance team members know what the compliance requirements are, and it's a bit of an education piece for the rest of the company. Yeah, very common theme
Yeah,
here. Training. Yeah, that's a big
yeah.
piece.
We'll cover that.
Yeah, nice. Okay, looks like we've got a bit of a quorum, so let's get stuck in. We'll start with some introductions. My name is Risha Shah, and I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Wheel. During my tenure, I've had the absolute pleasure of working with finance teams of all shapes and sizes, really intimately getting to know their struggles and their pains, and better yet, helping them solve them. I'm joined today by Nicholas Roberts, Wheel's product manager. I really can't think of a better person to take you through today's session due to his background at Wheel. I actually might not butcher this and hand over to you, Nick, to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Risha, and hi, everyone. I've worked at Wheel for 8 years and was actually Wheel's first full-time employee. During this time, I've had a few different roles, but I've really only had one job, which is to work out how we can get more expenses submitted accurately and on time for finance teams. In an effort to do so, I've been responsible for launching our approvals product. So it was exciting to see people wanting to learn more about this. We'll definitely cover that. Our accounting integrations and our suite of AI and automation features, which we'll look at closely in this session today.
Very nice. Now, before we get stuck into the actual meat of this session, a little bit of housekeeping. We want this session to be interactive, so please feel confident to ask questions along the way using the dedicated Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. I'll then pose these questions to Nick at the end of the session. Also, this is a 30-minute session and it will be recorded. So please, if you do need to drop off a few minutes early, please don't worry. We'll send you this recording after the session. Right, let's get stuck in. This story begins a few years ago where we really put focus and effort into going deep with our customers, speaking to them about their pain points, but also engaging with external research bodies, both public and private sector. The most interesting statistic that's come across from this for me is that while a lot of businesses claim to close their books within 3 days each month, this is really more of a buzzword than a benchmark. And most companies are actually seeing around that 6 day mark. I'd say more than half are saying 6+ days to close their books. Why don't we run a poll now just to see where your teams compare to this 6 or 3 day magic number? Yeah, can see some answers coming through now. A lot of people in that 10 day window. Yeah, good curve. Like I said, I can see a lot of people reporting that it's taking about 8 to 10 days each month, which, while comforting, I'm sure to know that you're all in that majority, it's something that we do want to help you tighten up. So from our research, we found that these delays tend to be caused by one of these four main pain points. Nick, I'll hand over to you to talk about each of them in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Risha. So what slows down month end? Well, research we've completed with our customers recently has identified 4 common causes of a slow month end. Firstly, expenses are not submitted on time. This is because staff lose receipts, procrastinate, or are distracted by other priorities. What this means is that finance teams need to spend time following up, which delays the time at which accounting data can be recorded in your accounting systems. Secondly, and we saw this come through in the chat a lot, approvals are not completed on time. We primarily see this happening because team leaders are following a manual process and approvals are cumbersome to complete or get lost, or because approvals get stuck when someone is unavailable for a period of time. This too results in finance teams needing to chase up and delays the time at which accounting data can be recorded. Thirdly, expenses are submitted inaccurately. Because our staff are not accountants, and coding accounting codes, cost centers, tax rates, and the like is complicated, it's common that expenses are submitted inaccurately coded. In turn, this means that finance teams need to spend time reviewing and reworking expenses so they can be submitted accurately. And finally, expenses require in-depth review. To hedge against the risk of out-of-policy spend and inaccurate expense data, finance teams spend significant time reviewing their transactions each month to identify anything that requires additional attention, which further delays month-end closures.
Nice.
So how do we solve this? Well, non-surprisingly, as a tech company, we believe that these problems can be solved by technology. Working with our customers over the years, we've developed a suite of AI and automation tools to help you close your books 5 times faster. So let's take a look at these now. So I'll just jump over to the Wheel product. So here we are on the budget screen. You can find our suite of AI and automation features by coming up to settings and then opening up your actual settings. And then here on the left, come to AI expense completion. And this is where this suite of tools lives. So the first feature here is card blocking. Some of you may already use this, but some may not. So what this feature does is it increases the number of expenses and receipts submitted on time by automatically blocking cards when expenses are overdue. Customers using this see a 31% uplift in the number of expenses submitted in 7 days. So to enable this feature, the first thing we'll do is we'll just toggle it on. And then we'll click Edit Rules. And then you want to customize the number of days expenses can be completed, incomplete before cards are automatically blocked. So the default's 3 days, but we might make it 5 days here. And then this new rule is, this next rule is actually new. So what you can now do is you can now exclude users who you don't want their cards to be blocked. So we see commonly this is company executives. So we've got these two selected, and then we click Update Rules. Now, what will happen is that if anyone hits that 5-day timeline with one or more incomplete expenses, their card will be automatically blocked. They'll be alerted about this. And then once they complete all overdue expenses, their card will be immediately unblocked.
Just to add, Nick, and talking about the user perspective, it is really not about punishing them or leaving them stuck or stranded. It is literally to build accountability. And we really do give them every opportunity along the way to complete those violating expense reports with push notifications and emails straight away every few days up until card blocking. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, nice, Shane. Okay, so the second feature here is AI receipt capture and match. So this feature also helps increase the number of expenses submitted on time and helps to increase accuracy by automatically attaching receipts emailed into Wheel to the correct expense. So to turn this one on, we just click the toggle, and then you'll see you have access to this email address. This is what you need to share with your staff. So just copy that and share that around. Now, when your staff have receipts that need to be attached, they can email them into this email address or forward them in. Tip here is you can do multiple at one time and just click send. Our AI will then get to work and will find the relevant transactions and automatically attach these for you.
Just an extra tip that I got from one of my customers on this one. What you can even do is set up auto forwarding rules in your inbox for your recurring payments like subscriptions to LinkedIn, Xero, Netflix, Spotify. That way you never even have to touch the email. It will go straight into Wheel. You can log in and see that expense is already partially completed for you.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Risha. So the third feature here is AI receipt validation. So this feature decreases the time spent reviewing expenses by analyzing all expenses made in your account in real time and surfacing any issues to you so you can take action without needing to review everything. To enable this feature, turn it on. And now any transactions will start being reviewed by our AI. So you can review any transactions that might have issues by opening up the spend management menu, going to transactions, clicking filter, and then selecting tax invoice, and then filtering by any flagged as invalid tax invoice. You can see that when you open the transaction, all issues detected are listed out for you, and then you can take the appropriate action. That includes just marking the tax invoice as valid if the issues don't apply. So I'll just head back to the settings page.
Just a quick point on the user side of things for this one too. Your users will also see that information that we provided, and it is really our way of catching them in that moment and in that behavior and trying to educate them on what your policies are and what a valid tax invoice is. You'd be surprised how many photos of bread, lunch, dogs, broken laptops, broken parking machines come through, and we really want to help you differentiate between what is acceptable and what's not.
The fourth feature here is decline comments. So this helps increase the accuracy of expenses submitted by giving approvers a mechanism to send any incorrectly submitted expenses back to staff for resubmission with a comment. This allows you as a finance team to educate your team in the moment at scale. So the next time someone submits something, it's done accurately. We're seeing from customers who use this, that they see a 22% decrease in the number of items that are incorrectly submitted when this feature is turned on. So to enable it, again, we'll turn it on and then head to spend management and open up the approvals table. Little tip here is you can actually change from admin view to individual view to see anything that specifically needs your attention. And now when you open up something for approval and click decline, this dialog box appears. And there's two things you can do. One, you can request changes, or two, you can continue to decline and straight archive an expense. So when actually in both options, you can leave a comment. So we'll just put this one in. So this is the wrong accounting code. Please choose this accounting code for this expense going forward. And then you click request changes. What happens next is the item then goes back to the requester for resubmission. It appears on their incomplete list, so it stays top of mind, and they can see the comment on the expense so that they then resubmit it accurately the next time. Great. And then the final feature we'll look at is our multi-step approval rule builder. So I'll just jump to that now. So you just click approval rules here. So this feature helps get approvals completed on time by allowing you to program your approval rules directly into Wheel, which then automatically loops in the right approver at the right time. So to get started with this feature, you come to this page. You can build approval rules for any payment type. So we'll do card transaction rules here. And you can see that you can group up like expenses by using filters. So you can filter by amount, category, user, role, budget, custom field, and more, depending on the payment type. And then once you've created the buckets of expenses, you can then create a unique approval process for each type of expense. And you can create approvals, or you can sort of set approvals as budget owners, users, or roles. Now, any user in the workflow will then be notified about approvals that need their attention, which can be completed via the Wheel web and mobile apps. Now, here's another new thing that you may not have seen. So now now let's say someone who's an approver is on leave and they have approvals sort of building up on their list, but they're not going to get to them. You can actually now redirect them to a delegate. So the way to do this is come up to settings and then user management. So come to this page, open up the approver's profile, and then come down to this new delegations settings section. And what you can do is you can enable that approver as out of office and set a start date for the leave. So let's say that's happening tomorrow, and then an end date. Now, what will happen here is that all currently pending approvals and then all new approvals received during this date will then be redirected to the delegate, which can obviously be changed at any time. Once the date's done, then the setting turns off and then everything goes back to the original approver as normal.
Really good. Nick, if you can go back to the approval rules page, I just wanted to touch on each of those 4 rules for anyone who isn't familiar with the screen and what each of them is aiming to achieve. So just for everyone on the screen here, these are the 4 different rules that you can set up. So you're saying, based on the action the end user is trying to take, I want XYZ to go for approval before the action is completed. For the first 3 of these, they are pre-spend. What we mean by pre-spend is that the user is trying to spend money in Wheel. You do not want that money to be spent until it goes through certain approvers. The first one is that the user is requesting a top-up. Either they want to use more outside of their normal recurring budget allowance, or they've actually got a card with a $0 allowance and they want to make a spend in the first place. The next one is for our fully fledged accounts payable tool. So for anyone who isn't aware, we do have a full accounts payable suite. This is essentially saying that before an invoice is extracted for payment, who should be in charge of approving it. With this one, you can actually base your rules on the supplier, the department, the user raising it, and you can really ensure that you've got the right delegations of authority in place. The third rule is for reimbursement claims. So this is your staff who maybe have accidentally spent on a personal card or don't qualify for a Wheel card just yet, and therefore can only claim reimbursements through the system. The great thing for you is that they will still draw down from their budget allowance, so your reporting is still accurate, but they can spend a personal card and have that alternate option to use business funds. And then the final one is post-spend. It is not about the allocation of funds. The money has already been spent via a Wheel card. This is more of a quality control checkpoint to say, I want the expense report that the user submits to go for review before we release it to our accounting ledger. That way you can ensure that the tax invoice is attached correctly, the coding is correct, and that this is an approved business spend, and that anything that hits your ledger has already been checked and you don't have to double handle in your accounting system. Nice.
Right. So there you have it. All these features work beautifully on their own. But where we see the best results is when you enable all of them. And there's more on the way too. We're hell-bent on automating the completion of fields at the moment. So something that we're just about to release is AI auto-generated description fields for anyone who uses the description field.
Nice.
Then following that, we'll release AI-generated categories and then custom fields.
That's a good teaser.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, Nick, thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights.
Yes.
We've got some time left and I can see quite a few questions coming in, so I will start asking them to you. I've had someone ask, are approvals the same as reimbursements? Now, I did go through each of the 4 headers just now, but I'm hoping I've answered your question. Essentially, approvals can be used for any activity, either pre-spend or post-spend in Wheel. Nick, the next question might be best asked for you. Is the email receipt AI option intended for credit cards and subscriptions only, or is it also for accounts payable?
Yeah, it was a great question. You can actually achieve both functions in Wheel. What I showed is the experience for credit cards and subscription cards, but similar functionality exists for accounts payable. I can actually just quickly show that.
Thank you.
So where this lives is if you come into payments, accounts payable, and you can see here that you have an email address. This is unique to your account and you can edit it. If you email in things here, then they create what we call an invoice in Wheel, and then that invoice is automatically extracted via AI. So very similar workflow for both accounts payable and card payments.
Yeah, just a dedicated inbox for your accounts payable so that there's not noise created by card spends.
Yeah.
Nice. I've had a question from Leanne. If you decline a card expense, does it mean that they receive a refund for the amount spent?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So the transaction has already happened. That money has moved. So the decline is really about the communication of that expense and then the data provided on that expense.
Very nice. Thank you. Will the auto receipt still attach the receipt or expense report, I'll say, when the user has marked no tax invoice?
No, it actually doesn't at the moment. So that actually leads to another interesting feature that might be good to get onto your radars. So if you come back to settings and then come down to expense fields, you can actually customize which payment types require a tax invoice. So I think the example here is probably about budget cards. So you have three different options here. One, you can say that tax invoices are mandatory. That actually takes away the option for someone to mark something as no tax invoice required. You can make that optional, so they can attach a receipt or they can mark it as tax invoice, no tax invoice required. Or you might have transactions where just flat out no tax invoice is required. You can mark it that way.
Nice. I've got a question for Melanie. Can a team member be assigned as an approver, or do they need a specialized role?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. No, anyone can be an approver. So literally any user, any role type can be an approver as long as you define it in your approval rules. But the interesting thing to look at, so you would just select them at the user level and your whole user list will come up. Budget owners and roles are really helpful though, because they let you group up users. Where we see this really helpful is if you have approvers that come and go in the business, or you just have high staff rotation in the business. Instead of selecting individual users, you can select roles attached to whoever fills the approver role. So that when people go, you don't need to come in and swap in a new user each time. It will just swap over to whoever gets invited into the account under that role. So just a bit of a time saver.
That's a great call out. I have a question from Ishka. Do
Yeah.
the approval rules still need to be applied, even though there is a default budget owner assigned to each budget?
No, they don't have to. It's just whatever makes sense for the business. I think in general, I'd encourage keeping things as simple as possible. So if the default rule, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just get back to that default rule. The default rule looks like this. If that makes sense, just keep that. But if you do need different layers of approval, because that's your process internally, then you can build that in on top of that.
Nice. Just to add to this, the default budget owner is a great backup just to ensure that no one is able to spend anything without your permission. The approval rules section really allows you to build out more customization. Where I see a lot of my customers using it is to set out thresholds. So maybe the default budget owner is allowed to approve up to a certain amount of additional funds, but once it becomes a large request, it needs to go through 2 levels of compliance before it's approved and allocated to the user. So you don't have to use it for everything. You can really use it for those more outlier cases just to make sure that you've got that compliance and governance in place. Nice.
I saw a really interesting question from Sophia here, which is, can AI auto detect past recurring expenses and apply the rule for accounting codes or job numbers and things like that? Sophia, that's actually what we're working on at the moment. So in the coming months, you'll see that released, which we're all really excited for.
Nice. Got another question that's going that way. Can all approvals be seen in the mobile app for approvers?
What do we mean by all approvals?
So I can actually answer this one because I do get asked about this a fair bit.
Yeah.
Currently, only 2 types of approvals can be seen in the app and actioned in the app by your approvers. That's top-up requests and reimbursement claim requests. Our logic with this thus far has been because those are more urgent requests, like the user needs access to those funds potentially straight away. Then accounts payable approvals and post-spend approvals are actually only currently available to action in the desktop. But we do hear a lot about this, and I think I can twist Nick's arm to potentially get his team to build this in the near future.
Yeah. No, happy to say that is on the immediate roadmap. So we should have something released here quite soon for everyone.
Nice. Got another question from Jameson. Is it possible for approvers to receive reminder notifications for pending transactions, pending approval?
Yeah, great question, because I think that can get missed sometimes. So the answer is yes. The way to configure this, oh, sorry, just going okay. So the way to configure this is on a user by user basis, in that the user actually configures it for themselves. Where you do that is if you come up into settings in the Wheel web app and go to settings again. And then on this profile settings screen, you can see communication preferences. And this is really all about approvals. Um, by default, this thing, scheduled approval summary, will be off. What you can do is you can turn that on, and then you can get Wheel to send a daily email or a weekly email of all outstanding approvals. So this can be used like a reminder list. So you can have both the instant approval notification, which means something needs your attention now, and then you can have either a daily or weekly email sending. So you have that as a reminder for yourself.
Very nice. I've got a question from Narissa. She's
Yeah.
asking about how subscriptions work and are they linked to budgets? Do you have
Yeah.
a quick moment just to show our subscriptions tool?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. And just whilst I do that, I've just seen a question about people wondering why they can't see the ability to exclude anyone from card blocking. So I might have been a bit misleading there. So that's now built, and we're just about to release that. So it's with a beta group now, and we'll be releasing that in the coming days. Okay, so let's jump to subscriptions. So we'll start with subscriptions. So how this feature works is you generate a unique virtual card per subscription. So fairly straightforward. How you do it is you click create new subscription, enter in the name of the software. So let's, what do we like to use? Let's call it Adobe. You then select who the owner of that subscription is. This does two things. One, it gives them access to the card so that they can attach it to the subscription. And then two, it gives you a name for the subscription so that if you have questions about it, you need to change the bill, you need to cancel it, you know who to go to. So let's just put it as this person. Then what you can do is, because the transaction is to the same merchant, generally for the same amount, it can often be coded exactly the same way each time. So you can just create a shortcut there rather than needing to do that. And then you select how frequently you're billed for the subscription. So you can do daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, annual, financial year. This means you can't be billed outside of that cycle. So it gives you that layer of protection in case the software provider or the subscription tries to double charge you in a period.
Nice.
And then you select the maximum amount. So let's say 100. Again, this gives you protection. It means you cannot be charged more than that amount. And any charge larger than that just won't go through. Leave any notes if you just want to have notes on record, and then the card will get issued.
Just to add, the real benefit I see of this tool, and for your assurance, Wheel charges per user, not per card. So please take full advantage of this tool. You can create a unique card per subscription per supplier, so they all run completely independently. That way, if a user leaves the business, or heaven forbid, their phone is lost or their card is frauded, you just close out that one subscription. Nothing else is interrupted. It all runs independently. Nick, there are so many questions coming in. I actually might start to wrap up and ask you one more question, but for
Sure.
everyone else's assurance, thank you for asking these questions. They are saved in our system, so I will reach out personally after this session and answer them one-on-one with you. Nick, the last question to you is that people are noticing they can't see that feature to exclude users from card
Yeah.
blocking in their account just yet. So they'd like to know when it will be available to them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's with a beta group now, and really in the coming days, it'll be released to everyone, and you'll be told about that. So yeah, sorry, I was probably a bit misleading there.
Perfect. Nick, I will get you to jump back over to that QR
Yeah.
code for me. So if you are on our premium or enterprise plans, you can access these features straight away by accessing the expense completion page that Nick showed you via your admin settings panel, or you can just scan the QR code on your screen right now and it will take you straight to that page. For those of you who want a little bit more of learning and information before you dive in, or if you're on a plan that doesn't currently have open access to these features and you're keen to test them out, I'm going to open up a poll now just to see who is in that bucket and who would like to hear from me again. You'll then either be hearing from me or one of my fellow customer success managers. Perfect. Yeah, oh, lots of people interested. Nice. It is honestly quite a game-changing suite of tools. I've had my card blocked a few times, I will be honest, but it does help me just be better for the company. Yeah, smashing. Yeah, a lot of interest. I'll give you a few more minutes just to click through and tell us whether you're interested or not. Yep. Very nice. Okay, might leave the poll on the sides. Finally, if you really like these features, which it looks like from the comment section, a lot of you do, and you really want to know as soon as we release more similar functionality, please scan the QR code on your screen now. It'll take you to our dedicated product updates hub, which is the place where we publish information on all our new releases. So you guys will be the first to know when all these exciting features continue to be released. And honestly, that is it. Thank you so much for joining. We really hope
Thank you,
you got
everyone.
something valuable out of this session. Go off and enjoy some well-deserved lunch and take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.